now.
Well, good morning. Dr. Victor McCullough, and this is a video for our ministry, our Introduction to Ministry course, 301, St. Paul School of Theology. And I'm here this afternoon with Rev Nancy Johnson. And Nancy is the Associate Pastor of Wickline United Methodist Church in Midwest City, Oklahoma. And Nancy has been in that role, I believe, for 7 years.
In November, it will be 7 years.
November.
Yes.
Okay. Well, Nancy, as the Associate Pastor, what is your role in the ministry of Wickline United Methodist Church?
Well, that's a big question. As the Associate Pastor, I have a lot of hats. But one of them is overseeing the adult education of the church and helping them in their discipleship. And I'm a resource for our youth director and our children's director as well. I also do pastoral care and big church-wide studies. I oversee that as well. I lead a programming team, and we talk about big events and studies for the fall and the spring and where we want to see the church go, and we help them get there.
Wonderful, wonderful. In our many years of working together in the local pastor's licensing school, every year we had you come in and talk about the pastor as a Christian educator.
Yes.
So we're going to focus on that this afternoon, your role as Christian educator in the life of the church. Is that all right?
Yes.
Okay. Could you talk about your role as a Christian educator and how you help your parishioners who are searching for answers with matters such as creation, the environment, science?
Sure. I always encourage people to ask questions, because I think if people become afraid to ask questions, then they stop growing and they stop wanting to discover new things. And so I encourage those questions, and when it comes to creation and science, as you know, Wesley said in his quadrilateral, Scripture is primary, and then you have your reason and tradition and your experience. And so I help people walk through that. And so we go to Scripture and see what that says, but we also look at the writings of the church and the beliefs of the church and where we fall on that, and give them those resources so that they can take them home and discover for themselves where they fall on that. And when it comes to the environment, in Genesis it says that God gave us dominion, and that we should be good stewards of this creation that He's given us. And so our role in that is to take care of that, and be responsible in how we care for it. And so that just comes from some hands-on things, recycling and showing the church that we do that. That we take our responsibility seriously as well, and so they see that.
So how do you deal with the statement, faith-seeking understanding? Theology as faith-seeking understanding.
If I'm understanding you right, faith-seeking understanding is taking those questions and being going to God in prayer and study, and then coming to an understanding of all the information and how it relates back to our faith.
Okay.
So.
Good. Churches today are made up of people who certainly are looking for the proverbial abundant life.
Yes.
How is it, as a Christian educator, you find best help people to arrive at what the abundant life is, and how to find that abundant life?
I think the abundant life that is found in God is lived out in community. And so if we can help people in their walk with Christ. If they come and they've accepted Christ, they've known Christ, and they know Christ, I try to get them connected in small groups, in community. And so because when you connect with people of similar faith and interest, and you can walk together with somebody, that makes life not seem so hard. And so encouraging people to read their Bible, see what God says about them, because I see the Bible as God's love story for his people. And he has created a special, and when people really discover that about themselves, then their life becomes more abundant. Then they're not worried about what other people think, because they then know that their God who created them made them special. And so if they can grasp that concept and become and join in the community of the church, either small groups, Sunday school, be in service so that they put their faith in action, and all those things play into that abundant life that God provides us.
Okay. Excellent. Well, our class is made up of budding theologians.
Yes.
And students who will soon be serving, or many are already serving as pastors in local churches. And so in the area of theology, how crucial is the role of the pastor as teacher in the church?
I believe the pastor is very crucial, because there's a pastor that I used to work with used the term wackadoo. There's a lot of, different theologies going on out there, different thoughts. But if you have somebody who is scripturally sound, and can communicate that well, that helps navigate those hard questions and sheds different light on different topics, so that there isn't confusion, but there's somebody you can go to that you trust that will lead you. So I believe the pastor is very crucial in the Christian education. In sermons as well, there's a lot of teaching moments that can come from the pulpit as well, that can, you hear that and it resonates with you throughout the week, and so that helps mold your theology, the theology of the parishioners.
What are some of the things that you believe the pastor should be teaching in these times?
In these times, I think that they should teach some assurance, that God is still in control, because the world seems completely out of control. But if the pastor can teach that God is still in control, that Jesus overcame the grave, defeated Satan, and so the things of the world that seem evil, they don't have power over us. And so if they can teach that and communicate that, it kind of sets people at ease.
Okay. Do you believe that the pastor has a role in teaching even some of the practical things of life? In a political age, is it a responsibility of the pastor to teach people the proper way to consider how to vote and evaluate candidates? Is that the role of the pastor?
Sure.
As well?
I think that if they can communicate ways to evaluate the candidates, I don't know how I feel about talking politics from the pulpit, but I think that there's a way to get people thinking about what's important to them and to evaluate where the candidates stand on that.
All right, thank you. We live in a time that is full of division, and some people, speaking of politics, some people say, well, you know, the church shouldn't be messing around in politics and that type of thing. How do you, as a Christian educator, or at least as a person that oversees the teaching and Christian education ministries in the life of the church, how do you ensure systematically that the church is not teaching some type of anti-intellectual or some type of exclusionary or some type of bias picture or understanding of God? How do you ensure that?
The way we go about with the adult studies, there's I'm going to take this two different ways.
Okay, take your
So
time.
for Sunday school, a lot of the classes they pick their own curriculum and they study that way. And then we also have our Wednesday and Sunday evening programs that are more, open church-wide. And so those are more tailored to the church and kind of where we feel like they need to be to help them get to where we would like them to be in their growth. And so when you have multiple teachers, it is hard to control, but we encourage discussion, and if somebody says something that they don't agree with, well, let's talk about that and see where they're coming from. In children, when we were talking about these questions, one of the things that I thought of was, in children's ministry, because I oversaw children's ministry for several years, you get a lot of teachable moments with kids. They make statements, and you can take a child and say, well, God is a God who accepts and loves everybody and is for everybody, and it's not this is our church, who are they, but we should welcome everybody. And so that's how I think taking that and applying it to adults as well, when somebody has made a statement that is contradictory to our doctrine or our theology, taking that and talking to the class, and this is in creating a discussion, because you can give them all the same lesson, but people are going to say different things, and so that comes from the pulpit, and then it trickles down also into the classes. Is that
right? And I sense in your remarks, it's so important that you meet people where they are,
yes,
and not try to shame them,
right,
into or to believing or at least articulating a different way, but more so to always bring out that this is a Wesleyan theology. This is
right,
a theology of God who we serve,
right,
that is broader than just an exclusionary us versus them.
exactly.
Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Okay. Excellent. Discuss the importance, if you will, the church's teaching on the message and the mission of the church. Why is that important today?
Well, the mission is to make disciples of Jesus Christ for the transformation of the world. And for me personally, if that's not what we're about as a church, and if that's not what I'm about as a individual, then what is it really about? And so in the mission of the church, reaching out, inviting people in, I've gone back to our mission statement at Wickline is we are the Church of the Vine. We venture out into the community, we invite people in, we nurture them, and we exalt the Lord. And so if we can teach our people, our congregation, that is not only true for us, but it's true for them as individuals. Where in their life are they venturing out and inviting and nurturing and exalting the Lord? Then people will come to know Jesus and the power that Jesus brings. And I think that's crucial in the life of the church, that we can get our community, get our church family thinking outside of the church walls as well.
Yeah. I was going to offer you that water.
Okay. I'm better. Got it.
Okay, great. I once heard a quote that education is the cultivation of the imagination. Wax on that a little bit. Do you agree with that statement? Do you see education as the cultivation of the imagination? And if so, how does that apply to the life we should live as the people of faith?
I think that if I as a Christian educator, as we as a church, give people the tools, the education, and the resources to be educated, to know what the scripture says, then your imagination could take off, and it could lead you into ministries that you've never thought of before. Because when you have an understanding of the scripture, the understanding of what God thinks of you, then you want to share that. You want other people to experience that. And so then your imagination just kind of takes off in different ways. In the Sunday school class I'm leading currently, we're doing a study about transformation, about how God can come in and transform your lives. And one of the lessons was on putting our faith in action, taking what we learned and creating ministries, creating opportunities for other people to know Jesus. And so we started talking and brainstorming and imagining all these different possibilities, and I'm excited to see where that goes. We're still in the talking stages, but somebody mentioned their experiences with the elderly, and that started somebody else talking about their experience with the elderly, and so we're talking about maybe doing a electronics tutoring session on a Saturday with people who don't find printers very friendly or need help with technology, and so creating that kind of ministry. And so I think when you cultivate that kind of environment, then your imagination can't help but take off. And that's the exciting part about Christian education is equipping the people, giving them the resources that they can take, and then grow from there. And that's really exciting.
That is. Wow, it is. I want to kind of wrap it up, but I have two questions that I'm thinking of. Number one, as if you were serving as a consultant or a mentor of sort to pastors who could not hire a Christian educator on their staff, how could a pastor who is solo in a setting still serve the needs of that church? How would you advise a pastor who didn't have a multi-staff, person staff to serve in that setting? The needs of Christian education.
Right. We have, I know of 2 different publishing houses that create great curriculum that pastors can use. And if Cokesbury being one of them, another one that is new is Seedbed, which has great Bible studies. Some of them are video, some of them are just discussion led. And so having those types of resources for the pastor is very important. And then it's also important for for the pastor to look within the congregation and who do you see that you could mentor that could help you in that in that role. And so there's giving some opportunities for the laity to expand their ministry and their leadership. That's what I would encourage somebody to do. There's a lot of studies out there. Disciple is a great way to get people in the Word, and many times leadership comes out of that. When you get people studying 80% of the Bible over the course of 9 months,
weeks,
32 weeks. You know, it's amazing what your imagination, what God can bring from that. And so I would encourage a pastor to get their people in the Word and see where God takes them.
Right. And finally, so much of our class has to do with spiritual formation. How is it with your soul, and what do you do, and this is a two-level question, what do you do to nourish yourself spiritually that you might be able to serve the spiritual needs of your congregants and parishioners? That's the first question. And then how do you continue to keep yourself informed as it relates to new development, new trends in Christian education that might ultimately be helpful for the church?
Sure. My soul is good. My family, the church is all doing very well, and so that does my soul good. I am very intentional on taking Sabbath and taking time to disconnect from the church, to connect with family. My daughter just started playing soccer, and so now we're going to soccer games, but having that intentional family time nourishes my soul. And it's important for me to be in the scriptures as well, and not just, well, I have this lesson I need to prepare for, so I got my Bible time in there. But my personal growth and my personal relationship with Christ, when I nurture that, the other things fall into place as well. And as for keeping informed, I'm actually going to a conference tomorrow. I'm leaving town. It's called the New Room Conference in Tennessee, and so I think those educational opportunities for me are really important to keep a hand on the pulse of what's going on, and learning from other people and asking them questions, and then the people around me as well, just asking them how are things, what are you doing in your church that's effective, and how can I bring that back?
Okay.
So,
Reverend Johnson, thank you so very much
very
for
welcome.
your time, and
You're
really
very
appreciate that. And we got a lot of meat to chew on from
good.
your conversation
Hope
with
that
us
was
this
helpful.
afternoon. It was.
Thank you. Thank
All right.
you. Blessings.